LeBron James all the way in.
And here comes Simmons the other way, 3-on-2. Simmons eludes the defender and lays it in with that. Certainly the length altered that shot. Out of the equipment, steps and crunches.
Play right there. Porzingis from Jennings, throw down and a foul.
Irving, splits the defense with the dribble.
All right, Bernie. Take 2 on the Cleveland Cavaliers talk, but we're jumping into the top 3 of the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
And like I said, we're going to start with Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 24-12. Started off the season pretty atrociously.
Then went on a 16-game win streak, I believe.
I think it was 16 games, yes. Which just goes to show how bad the start of their season was because they're 24-12. You know? But let's jump into it. What are you giving them as far as your grade is concerned?
My grade, I would have to give them a B.
B?
And the reason why I'm giving them a B is because we still have yet to figure out how Isaiah Thomas is going to fit into this team.
Mm-hmm.
The B reason is because LeBron James, of course, is the juggernaut of the team. He's carrying them in all statistical categories, triple-doubles, playing like out of his mind like he's 23 again.
Yeah.
He's found the fountain of youth. I would like to know where he found it. But, the Cavaliers are a team that we have to still kind of figure out what they are when Isaiah Thomas comes back, because we already know about Kevin Love. He's an improved shooter. He's improving stats now that he's the number 2 guy. Now the real question is, will he fall back to the number 3 guy, or will he stay the number 2 when Isaiah Thomas comes back? Players that have also played really well that I didn't mention in the first take was the fact that Jeff Green is bringing some valuable minutes to them. He's a very serviceable bench player.
I agree.
Dwayne Wade, another one. He's actually shot a lot more threes with confidence this year than I've seen before in years past.
Yeah.
Other than that, Tristan Thompson, he's been injured, but I've also been very disappointed in him.
Yeah.
And other than that, like we said, we got trade rumors that we got to talk about as well with this team. So it's not a complete canvas yet. Mm-hmm. There's still some things that you got to paint with this team, but time is kind of running out with them. It's already halfway through the season. They should already have most of what they need by now.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to actually change my grades from take 1 to take 2.
Right.
All right? I'm going to give them a B+. Or a B. I'm going to go to a B, actually, which is pretty different. I gave them an A- the first time. But I've had some more time to think about it, all right?
Yeah.
And my reasoning, and the reason I've had more time to think about it, is not necessarily for their play on the court, which I've been mostly impressed with since, I think everybody knew that the beginning of the season was really just, this is a team playing without their, like we said, Batman and Robin. This is a team playing without their Robin, So I think it was partially to be expected, and I think anybody expecting them just to win every game at the start of the season was definitely not thinking about basketball in the right way, because it's not the way it works. Plus, they're playing with very, broken down, beat up Derrick Rose as their point guard to start the season, which just, what were they thinking after, the fact that they started him after seeing what they saw from him in the Knicks last year, that's scary to me that they would think that was the right idea. But they didn't really have anything else to work with.
Yeah, it was either him or Jose Calderon. So,
and it's going to show that Calderon really is the better option right now. But it's hard to fault them in some aspects, because how were they supposed to know that Calderon was going to be better than Derrick Rose? Once upon a time the guy was the MVP of the league, so hard to blame him there, right? But I have been impressed that they fixed their woes on, defense to some extent, and they fixed a lot of the problems that they needed to fix so quickly, and then they went on the 16-game win streak. So play-wise, I would give them an A, but I'm going to give them a B for the fact that there's so many questions still to be determined about the team. We don't know what the team's going to look like come the playoffs, whether, like you said, we don't know if IT is going to be the second option, whether he's going to be the third option. You don't know what Kevin Love and him, what they're going to do together. Mm-hmm. Then we don't know where LeBron's going to be, so it kind of affects, you can't necessarily just think of this season in a singular aspect, because what's LeBron going to do after the season really is a question that you need to be wondering for the Cavaliers, because it changes what the trade deadline is going to look like for them. Mm-hmm. Do they go out and trade for DeAndre Jordan just because LeBron wants to play with him?
Right.
probably I would say no, because he's not going to be very good and he's not going to carry your team next season when LeBron leaves, if he does. So I just don't think they know what they're doing, because LeBron has kind of put them in a rock and a hard place. They want to win the championship this year, but they also don't want to screw themselves next year if LeBron does decide to leave. So there's not much they can really do about it, but I am still going to penalize them for that, just because there is so many questions about the team that need to be answered if they are going to beat the Golden State Warriors. You can't have all those questions on your mind come the NBA Finals and still have a chance of beating the Warriors.
Yeah.
You need to be locked in. So if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, or the NBA Finals, let's say, were to start tomorrow, Cavaliers, Golden State Warriors, I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind that the Warriors would just run over the Cavaliers, because there's so much, there's so much up in the air, you know. So there you go. Play-wise, though, I'm impressed that they've been able to accomplish what they have without a point guard. They're working with Jose Calderon, so more credit to them, really.
All right, number 2 on the list is going to be the Toronto Raptors.
The Toronto Drakes.
The Toronto Drakes.
The six.
The 6.
What do I want to give the Toronto Raptors? I'm going to give them an A.
An A? Okay.
Honestly, the Toronto Raptors are kind of a perpetual, since the DeMar DeRozan era has begun, they're kind of like a regular season, perpetual A. They play really well in the regular season. So yeah, it's hard. They're 13-1 at home. That's pretty great. One loss at home. Their road record's not that great. They did lose a game to my New York Knicks. They kind of got beat down in that game too. But that was a road game in Madison Square Garden, and honestly, the Knicks don't lose a lot at home. So that's something. But Toronto, I like what I've seen from their team. Like you've said a couple times, I really don't necessarily have faith in them when it comes to postseason time. And I really thought, because I don't know if you remember this, but Kyle Lowry made some comments about the San Antonio Spurs at the beginning of the season, where he said he wanted to go to the Spurs, but they didn't want him, which is a little weird. It was kind of a weird comment to make at the start of the season when you're going to still play for the Toronto Raptors.
Right.
And that kind of got me worried about Kyle Lowry, whether he was going to be checked out for the season, just coast until he could be a free agent. So I'm impressed that he hasn't done that based on those comments. So I like it. But really, just right now, I'm going to give him an A, just because it is the regular season and they're winning so many games. But I still don't have faith in them.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I'm going to give them an A-, based on the fact that regular season, they're perfect. They can get top 4 any year, no matter what the reason is, no matter how they play. So far they've lost. These are a couple games recently. They've lost to the Mavs, so that's not a good loss. They lost to the Thunder, which is an okay loss, I guess.
They got beat in that game.
They did. They won against the Hawks, which expected. And just like some of the teams that they lose to, like you said, they lost to the Knicks the last time they played.
Clippers.
They've lost to the Clippers. They've won against the Suns. This team is good. This team has the tools and everything in it to become a top 4 team and become like a juggernaut in the regular season. It all just comes down to the postseason, where I do not have faith in Kyle Lowry, because his shot just goes missing.
Yeah.
And that's where I get confused with this team, is because I think they have all the tutelage. I think DeMar DeRozan is a really good player, but you have to give him either a decently good point guard that is able to shoot the ball in the postseason. Because I don't know if the Monstars just take Kyle Lowry's powers away, or what happens during the postseason, but it's like a completely different player.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sucks to see, because I think this team last year had probably the best chance, or these last couple years.
Yeah.
After tumultuous bad seasons, now that Drake's taken over it, Drake Knight, they have all this hype around them because of the 6.
Mm-hmm.
But I want them to kind of carry out this kind of uprising of the Toronto Raptors, but I'm just not seeing it from them in the postseason. because the postseason is where it really matters to these teams. I mean, they could care less as long as they get into the playoffs and they can get far in the playoffs, they'll be happy. But if they can't get far in the playoffs,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, and that's the same thing. Like I'm trying to think, who was that? That was what is that like? Peyton Manning, right? In the NFL was kind of like the regular season guy, but he never performed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then he turned it around. So I'm not. I will never count out Toronto to turn it around because honestly, their team it's pretty good. Like they get a lot of points, like from guys that like in the like 6-man area, like off the bench. Like I don't. Does CJ Miles start for them? I don't think he does. I think he comes off the bench. But CJ Miles, like I've watched him go crazy from the 3-point line some games this year. And like that's just a good sign when you're getting points off the bench like that. Kyle Lowry. I mean, this team is like it's built offensively to compete with the best teams in the NBA. Like they have so many people who can score. DeMar DeRozan literally might be one of the best offensive players ever just based on what he's able to do. Like it's so crazy sometimes if you watch him. Yeah. Like I said, I'm just going to give them an A. It's the regular season. They're playing really good. They're in the 2nd seed. And, you know, like we said earlier, like there's teams that we think probably should be up in that area that aren't there. And it's more credit to the Toronto Raptors that they've stepped into that spot. Like the Wizards, for example. Let's move on to your boys, Bernie.
Move on to my boys. The Celtics.
Some woes recently.
Not too bad.
Not too bad, though.
I mean, they won a crazy game against the Rockets.
They did win a good game against the Rockets.
You know, they're on a 3-game winning streak so far until they play the Cavaliers the 3rd.
That's going to be a big one.
That's going to be a big game to see if Isaiah can come and play there because the game is at TD Garden.
It is.
We'll see if he can play there. But the grade of the Celtics this year, I would have to give them an A-.
I think you're crazy. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Think I'm crazy? You think it should be lower?
I think it should be an A+.
Only reason why it's an A- only because we lost Gordon Hayward. Not any fault of his own. It was just a freak accident. Nothing you could do about there. But, you know, the Celtics have really proven, and I'm going to tell you why I give them an A-. But the Celtics have really stepped up since the injury. We got players like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Those guys are playing out of their minds right now, playing some ridiculously good basketball. Jason Tatum looking like he should have been a top 2 pick.
Number 1, probably.
Number 1. I mean, the Celtics did say that they were going to take him number 1 no matter what.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this team has just done a lot. They've allowed the least amount of points with 98.5. You know, rebounding, they need to do a little bit better of a job, only because Al Horford's not really your rebounder. It has to be like a rebounding by committee, like I've said before on the channel. And, you know, this team has shown you, and Kyrie is showing you, that he wants to evolve from the Robin to Nightwing.
Nightwing, not Batman himself. He doesn't.
Not Batman himself. He wants to be Nightwing.
He doesn't want to be Batman Beyond.
Well, just think about it. Like, you know, LeBron is going to be Batman. He always will be. But Kyrie wants to be his own dude, and that's kind of what Robin did himself.
I agree. You're right.
Becoming Nightwing, beasting and feasting right now. Not really like putting up crazy numbers, like I think a lot of people expected, kind of like Isaiah Thomas-like. But I do think that the offense is built around more sharing the basketball, and you're seeing that really with the 2 rookies getting a lot more minutes, and Al Horford probably playing his best basketball.
Yeah.
Since he's been a Atlanta Hawk.
Certainly. Yeah.
So, you know, I just like to see that this team is doing very well. Even with the Gordon Hayward injury, you know, the life sucked out of them. You know, they went 0-2. They went on a big winning streak. And the reason why I'm going to give them an A-, not an A or an A+, is due to the fact that they always find themselves coming from behind.
Yeah. Which
is never a good recipe for the playoffs. It's never a good recipe for anything, because if you go down a lot, there's no predicting how you're going to, you know, climb up from that. So if you go down by 20 points, it's going to be really hard because we're not a 3-point shooting team like the Warriors are.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason why I'm giving them an A-. They've really stepped up since the Gordon Hayward injury. The rookies are stepping up, and that's the reason why I'm giving them an A-.
Okay. All right. I like your explanation. It kind of made me feel like you're a little less crazy. All right. But, and excuse me, I think I just got the hiccups, so this is great timing for me. But I'm going to give them an A+, like I said. probably the best rating I'm going to give anybody in the league right now, just because I'm thinking the opposite way from you with the Gordon Hayward injury. I think they easily could have crumbled and had an awful season, and people would have written it off as, oh, Kyrie's first year being the guy again since his rookie year in Cleveland, or maybe what did he do, 2 years without LeBron?
4.
He did 4 years without LeBron?
4, I believe.
He's been in the league that long? Holy shit. That's a side note, though. But I think you easily could have had that Gordon Hayward injury 4 or 5 minutes into the first game of the regular season, and the team could have crumbled, and it could have easily been just written away as a season lost to injury,
Mm-hmm.
But then they went on the crazy winning streak. The team is leading the league. They've played the most games. And not only that, they have the best record, the most wins in the league. It's hard to deny how impressive not only the coaching has been, but the team play for this young, very young team has been.
No, you're right. It was 2 seasons.
Okay, so this is the first time in like 4 years he's been the guy on a team. And he wasn't necessarily expecting to be the guy. He was expecting to be the co-guy,
Mm-hmm.
with Gordon Hayward. So a lot more responsibility than he was necessarily planning on happening fell onto his shoulders, and he's carried it like an absolute champ. But yeah, I mean, this Boston Celtics team is easily like maybe the first or second best coach team in the league. They have, like you said, Jaylen Brown, sophomore season, killing it. Jason Tatum, rookie season, people didn't think he was capable of doing half the things he's done this year, and he's doing them in spades, like shooting three-pointers, playing incredible defense. People thought he was not capable of those two things. He's doing them. And then, like you said, Al Horford, probably this is the best Al Horford season I've seen in a long time. It's really impressive, and it's just like it just goes to show, they're all committed to the system that they're playing. Like, that's what they want to do. And there's a reason that Kyrie isn't putting up the crazy Isaiah Thomas numbers, is because he is committed to playing in the system. Mm-hmm. And the system doesn't really need that kind of performance, And I would agree with you that playing from behind all the time isn't a good sign for the playoffs. But I would also say that, like, the fact that they're winning those games is also a good sign, because it shows that the team, even though they are a little young, is able to do that and come from behind in the clutch, So it's kind of like a two-headed beast, where it's negative that they have to do it, but it's also a positive that you're seeing that they're capable of doing it when the time is necessary. And they're not necessarily just doing it against bad teams. They're doing it against some really good teams too, I mean, the Houston game, crazy, So I'm infinitely impressed with the Boston Celtics. Really happy to be watching them. 2017, 2018. I think they're going to do some big things. I honestly do think they're going to end up being the 1 seed too. Like, I think they're going to keep it.
Yeah, I think depending on how the Cavaliers play and how the Raptors play, I think the Raptors and the Celtics play in the same division, so those two will be battling it out.
All right, let me ask you one question, just for the Celtics, just because you are such a big Celtics fan.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've heard this talked about other places too, but I'm curious to hear your opinion, because we haven't talked about it. Let's say Boston Celtics make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, right?
Right.
Gordon Hayward cleared to come play. Would you want him to play in the Eastern Conference Finals?
No.
All right. I was just curious, because I have heard some people say yes, like, of course, if he's available. It's like the Aaron Rodgers, Carolina Panthers team, right? You have a chance to do it and make it to the playoffs or make it to the finals. Do you want this guy to come back and risk your next season too? I would agree with you. I would say no.
The reason why I would say no is because, he's coming back from like a very gruesome injury. So you don't know how he's going to react to a high-pressure situation game. And due to the fact that there's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of like emotions into the game, will he be emotionally drained because he hasn't played the whole season?
Yeah.
And I think it's better to rest him now, because if this is a career-ending injury like some people said it could have been, I don't want him to risk it just for a playoff game and we end up losing. Because like I said, even though I do believe that the Celtics are good enough to get to the finals, I don't think that they will this year.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it's a baking process. It's not a microwave process. So I want to see this team kind of just keep growing with one another. I think this team has the right tools and utilage to become a very good team, but we just have to wait and see how Gordon Hayward plays next season.
Yeah, I agree. All right, my sentiments exactly on the Boston Celtics. Bernie, let's move on to the Eastern Conference. Is there any other questions we had regarding? I think I just said let's move on to the Eastern. But is there any other questions you had about the Eastern Conference?
I guess the only question is, this is just going to to be the last part of it. The last spot. Who do you think it's going to?
Who's going to be in last place?
Who's going to not who's going to be in last place, but who for the playoff. We're going to just talk playoffs real quick.
The 8 seed.
Who's going to be if you were confident in the last 2 seeds, the 8 and the 7, are those changing or are those staying?
Those are both going to change, I think. I think the Heat are going to move up. All right, let me give you a controversial take, all right?
Okay.
I'm going to be a little controversial. I'm going to piss some Detroit fans off, all right? I really think that Detroit is going to stumble really hard. I've mentioned this a few times. I think, honestly, there's a chance that they could drop out of the playoffs altogether, which is a little hard. I'm giving you a controversial take, all right?
Okay.
They could fall out. I think there's a better chance that they obviously fall out than the Bucks or the Heat. I think the Heat are a proven team to some extent. They have a great coach. Not saying Stan Van Gundy isn't, but I think the Heat are working with a little bit better as far as the pieces are concerned. The Pacers, I think there's a chance they drop out. But I'm going to say Detroit at 7 and Philadelphia at 8.
Okay.
So I didn't take Detroit out. I just brought them down back to earth.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I got you a little worried for a second.
I was like, you're gonna take them out.
I really do think there's a chance. If I had to pick any team in the top 5 of the Eastern Conference to just absolutely crumble, Detroit, and I would say that there's a probably maybe like a 25% chance they just don't make the playoffs.
Damn. All right, so for me, I'm gonna have to move. I'll move the Milwaukee Bucks up to 5, the Wizards at 6, and then I think the Pacers. As much as I give them credit, and as much as I said if the playoffs ended today, they would give the Celtics trouble, I just think that it's going to be hard for them to continue what they're doing right now. Mm-hmm. They're still a superstar away, so I think the Knicks will slip in at the number 8 spot. And I think we're going to have to talk about it later in the year. Maybe this will be a topic for another video. Would it be disappointing if the 76ers did not make the playoffs? I guess we'll talk about it in a later video. You guys are going to have to stay tuned.
Yes. Let's talk about that later. Let's just say last team in the Eastern Conference. Who's going to get last place, Bernie?
It's the Hawks.
Think so?
I think so.
I honestly, from what I've seen from the Magic recently, there's a good chance that they do it. They're pretty god-awful, which is crazy after what some people were saying after the first 15 games of the season.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I honestly do think Atlanta's probably the worst team in the entire NBA. Like, they're really hard to watch.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy to think that the Lakers are only one win ahead of them?
That's crazy to me because I honestly, if you put them in like a 7-game series, honestly, I think I'd pick the Lakers in like 5.
Yeah. And just another video topic to discuss. If the Lakers do end up in the spot in like the 2 to 5, the Celtics would get their pick. So
there's a good chance it happens.
There's a good chance. You ready to move on to the Western Conference Finals?
Let's do it.